All right, we're back. Welcome back to week 36, Beha'alotcha. And this is the Torah portion. We've just had a time talking about the Levites, the moving of the tabernacle. We're going to get into a bit more detail of that a bit later, but we've also been talking about the second Passover and the link with the New Testament, Joseph, Arimathea. You can go back and look at that. That will be on our site. All right, but now we're going to be reading through from chapter 9 in Numbers, verse 15 through to the end of the chapter. We are reading from the Bible, the Torah, first 5 books of the Bible. So let's read that. I'll get, I won't ask Nat to read that one. I'll ask, let's see, Kelly, are you able to read are you in a position to read verse 15 through to the end of the chapter, verse 23, chapter 9, Numbers?
No problem. Okay, verse 15, chapter 9 of Numbers. On the day that the tabernacle was set up, the cloud covered the tabernacle, the tent of the testimony, and at evening it was over the tabernacle like the appearance of fire until morning. So it was always the cloud covered it by day and appearance of fire by night. And whenever the cloud lifted from over the tent, after that the people of Israel set out. And in the place where the cloud settled down, there the people of Israel camped. And at the command of the Lord, the people of Israel set out, and at the command of the Lord they camped. As long as the cloud rested over the tabernacle, they remained in camp. Even when the cloud continued over the tabernacle many days, the people of Israel kept the charge of the Lord and did not set out. Sometimes the cloud was a few days over the tabernacle, and according to the command of the Lord, they remained in camp. Then according to the command of the Lord, they set out. And sometimes the cloud remained from evening until morning. And when the cloud lifted in the morning, they set out. Or if it continued for a day and a night, when the cloud lifted, they set out. Whether it was 2 days or a month or a longer time that the cloud continued over the tabernacle, abiding there, the people of Israel remained in camp and did not set out. But when it lifted, they set out. At the command of the Lord, they camped, and at the command of the Lord, they set out. They kept the charge of the Lord at the command of the Lord by Moses.
Wow. Okay. What a wonderful way to know the divine will of God. If you've been praying, Lord, what job should I do? Can you get me a job? And all of a sudden a cloud appears and guides you along the street to, the Griffith Hospital where you're to apply as a nurse or something. Wouldn't it be wonderful if, you said, Lord, are you calling me to be a missionary in Thailand? Oh, and the cloud appears, and then it leads you to the airport, and you hops on the plane, it fills the plane, and then flies over to Thailand, isn't it? Wouldn't that be wonderful? Well, this is how this all happened. So what we're looking here is this cloud. We're going to talk a little bit about the cloud here, and Rashi says here the Mishkan, the tabernacle, served as a tent over the tablets of the testimony. So the law, the 10 commandments. The appearance of the fire was continually over the Mishkan, the tabernacle. Such is the meaning of the expression of the entire passage. So this cloud remained over the tabernacle all the time. And it represents, remember, we're looking for foreshadows of the Messiah here. So the cloud above the earthly tabernacle represents, which represents the heavenly sanctuary. The heavenly sanctuary took the form of a cloud which can travel to correspond to the portable earthly tabernacle, which travels from location to location. Numbers Rabbah, so this is the Midrash, Rabbah 12:12 says, Rabbi Shimon explained, when the Holy One, blessed be he, told Israel to set up the tabernacle, he hinted to the ministering angels that they should also set up a heavenly tabernacle. When the one below was assembled, the heavenly one on high was also assembled. The heavenly tabernacle was the tabernacle of the young man whose name was Metatron. And in it, he offers up the souls of the righteous to atone for Israel in the days of their exile. What? Where did they get this from? This is a midrash. So this is a story to explain the story here. But there's a lot of things in this midrash, an explanation by the rabbis, because of the links here with Jesus. I'm sure you're going to see this as we go through. So according to this midrash, this story, this teaching, the sacrificial services which take place in the heavenly sanctuary are conducted by an angelic prince called Metatron, who was also called the young man. And Metatron, who also has another name, the angel of the face of God, functions as the high priest in the heavenly sanctuary. According to this teaching, he offers up the souls of the righteous as sacrifices on the heavenly altar to atone for Israel, in order to bring an end to the exile and bring about the redemption. That is to say, the suffering and death of the righteous are likened to sacrifices, because the suffering of the righteous and the death of the righteous atone for the sins of the nation. This is a bigger, wider subject that we are learning in milk, and that is that the death of the righteous atones for the unrighteous. And so, but we continue here. So what is this Metatron? Who is this? The angel of the face of the Lord, the young man. Well, in Hebrews, in the Hebrew scriptures, it's an allusion to Joshua the high priest. And I beg your pardon, not Joshua the high priest, Joshua the son of Nun, Joshua the person, that the young man that takes over from Moses to lead the children of Israel into the promised land. So Joshua is called the young man, and we see that in Exodus chapter 33. For those that, this is a little bit more mystical, for those that like a bit of a mystical, Christians tend to like the mystical more than the Jewish, there's a more considered, it's a bit of the fourth type of interpretation of scripture. But for many Christians, it's like our first. Oh, this is mystical, so exciting. This links with this and this and this. But Exodus 33:11 says, so the Lord spoke to Moses face to face, as a man speaks to his friend. And he would return to the camp, but his servant Joshua, the son of Nun, a young man, did not depart from the tabernacle. And so from this scripture, the whole concept of Metatron, the heavenly high priest of the heavenly sanctuary, is linked with Joshua, linked with the Joshua being the earthly representative. And so, to this day, in the prayers for Rosh Hashanah, there is a special meditation that accompanies the blowing of the shofar and refers to Metatron, you ready, as Jesus Sa Panim, Jesus, the Prince of the Face. Now, they don't say Jesus, they say Yehoshua, the face of the prince, which is Joshua's name. But did you know that Yehoshua is actually the name of Jesus? We say Yeshua, which is a shortened, abbreviated Aramaic form, but the Hebrew name for Jesus is Yehoshua, and the name for Joshua is Yehoshua. And so this teaching compares the two. Now, the writer of the book of Hebrews places Jesus, so this idea of Metatron is not unknown to our apostles. Mystical as it may sound, our apostles understood this teaching, and the writer of the Hebrews places Jesus, who is superior to the angels, so he's the angel, the face of God, into the high priesthood of the heavenly sanctuary, and he offers his own blood, his own suffering and death on the heavenly altar to atone for sinners. So there's a strong link here with the writer of the book of Hebrews and this idea of this person, this heavenly priest called Metatron. When I was a boy, I used to watch Gigantor. Gigantor was like this robot that could just fly into space, Gigantor. Now, anyone of my era would know that, on a Saturday morning, you'd watch the cartoons and watch Gigantor. Well, doesn't that sound like Metatron? And the Metatron, this priest. So yeah, that's the story. Any questions about Metatron? Very mystical. We've got to throw in a mystical teaching in there sometimes. Yes, Jay, you've got a question?
My question was, in that verse about Joshua staying behind, was he in the tent of meeting or outside the tent of meeting? And
it's in Exodus 33. I think he was talking about, let me just go back to 33. What does it say there, Jay? Read it. Can I just say, Jay, you read it and find out yourself. It's just a bit off topic. It's a bit off topic, that one. Okay, so Joshua, there's references to Joshua being halfway up the mountain as well with the Lord, and references to him being at the entrance of the tabernacle, but not in the actual tent of meeting, as in the holy place. In that particular reference in 33, I remember it's God meeting Moses face to face. I'm just the subject, I'm not 100% sure, and just right without looking at it. Anyway, let's move on, unless there's a question on topic there.
I hope on topic. I was looking in Metatron is the name Enoch received after his transformation into an angel.
Okay, again, more mystical. Enoch's transformation into an angel is not something that we probably ascribe to. But thank you for that, Leon. And not off topic, that's right on topic. But yes, thank you for that, though. All right, so this cloud that moves across the desert with them, Rashi describes it. I've always sort of seen it as a vertical pillar of smoke or something like that, but that's not what Rashi describes it quite differently. He says, when the Israelites traveled, the cloud would fold and spread itself over the tribe of Judah like a beam. They blew the tekiah, which is the long blast of the trumpet, the teruah, a series of short blasts, and another tekiah, but it did not move on until Moses declared, "Rise up, O Lord," and then the banner of the camp of Judah would travel. And as soon as the Israelites encamped, the pillar of cloud would mushroom upwards and spread itself over the tribe of Judah like a canopy. It would not depart until Moses declared, "Return, O Lord, to the myriads of Israel, thousands." And this is what it is meant by the words, "according to the Lord's word through Moses." So the cloud had these different formations depending on the point of time at which the children of Israel traveled, and most of the time created this canopy over the top of them. The sanctuary was a formidable structure, says the Rebbe, consisting of hundreds of foundation sockets, wall sections, pillars, tapestries, furnishings. A work crew of several thousand Levites assembled the sanctuary at each camp and dismantled and transported it when the divine command would come to move on. Yet the tent of meeting was erected at every encampment, even only for a single day. Now, that was a question I had, actually. I said, look, if they're moving and they're traveling for 3 days, do they actually set up the tabernacle of a nighttime? And the answer is, according to the Rebbe, yes. So every day the tabernacle was set up, the ark was placed into the holy place, the presence of God was there. So there we go. Any other questions? Let's look at these trumpets, the silver trumpets. So let's go to chapter 10. Well done, everybody. You're walking through well today. There's some interesting things that we're studying here, but well done. So the silver trumpets. Let's read this one. Let's have, who have we got here to read today? Let's go with, I'm just looking around. Lily, chapter 10, verse 1 to 10. Are you able to read that, darling, in your nice voice?
Yep. The Lord said to Moses, he said, make 2 trumpets out of hammered silver. Blow them when you want the community to gather together, and blow them when you want the camps to start out. When both trumpets are blown, the whole community must gather in front of you. They must come to the entrance of the tent of meeting. Suppose only one trumpet is blown, then the leaders must gather in front of you. They are the heads of the tribes of Israel. When a trumpet blast is blown, the tribes that are camped on the east side must start out. When the second blast is blown, the camps on the south side must start out. The blast will tell them when to start. Blow the trumpets to gather the people together, but do not use the same kind of blast. The sons of Aaron, the priests, must blow the trumpets. That is a law for you and your children after you for all time to come. Suppose you go into battle in your own land, and suppose it is against an enemy who is beating you down. Then blow a blast on the trumpets. If you do, I will remember you. I will save you from your enemies. I am the Lord your God. You must also blow the trumpets when you are happy. Blow them at your appointed feasts. Blow them at your new moon feasts. Blow them when you sacrifice burnt offerings. Blow them when you sacrifice your friendship offerings. They will remind me of you. I am the Lord your God.
Thank you very much, Lily. So we've got these 2 trumpets. They're not shofars. They are silver trumpets. Let me just share my screen with you for a minute. And let's have a look at these trumpets. You might be able to see them there. Let me just open these in a bit of a bigger screen. That's not the picture of the trumpets. So anyway, this does happen from time to time when I try and open an image in a new tab. And there they are. That's the trumpets, not the usual shofar, ram's horn look about them. So Josephus says that Moses had these made, and he says how they're used. It's amazing because Josephus was himself a priest, and then obviously wrote this incredible history. So he was saying it was in the form, at the end of it was in the form of a bell, like a common trumpet, and it was blown at certain times. And Lily's just read that, so we get an idea. But this is the way you communicate to a very, very large number of people. There's 2 trumpets. They have certain types of blasts. There's the tekiah, the teruah, and the tekiah. And there's another trumpet blast that we learned called the shebarim, series of 3 short blasts. But these, whether 1 was blown or 2 were blown, what was blown on the trumpets was an indication of who was supposed to come in, or an announcement to move. And so this is how it worked. When the cloud lifted, indicating the time for breaking camp, so it's time to move, the priest had sounded a long, steady trumpet blast, which is called a tekiah. Say tekiah. Tekiah. So it's a long, steady trumpet blast on a pair of silver trumpets. And that was to alert the people that the time for setting out had arrived. Rashi says, when you want to speak with the members of the Sanhedrin court and the rest of the people, and you summon them together before you, you convene them with trumpets. This is like nowadays, it's a text, or we're on Zoom, need to get there to be, but back in these days, no, they didn't have this. So it was trumpets. They had to communicate to millions of people. At the time the camps are due to depart, you blow on them as a signal. And it follows that as they traveled at the behest of 3 things: 1, God's bidding, so the cloud would lift, the word of Moses, and the call of the trumpets. And so this is how they would be sounding. According to the tradition, the long blast, the tekiah, with both trumpets, signaled that the entire assembly was to meet at the entrance of the tabernacle. That would be a major feat, 2.5 million people coming to the tent of meeting. So that's both trumpets, long blasts on both trumpets. a long blast, a tekiah, on a single trumpet. So if you only heard one trumpet blowing, then that summoned only the leaders. The leaders would come in to meet. When both trumpets were sounded with short blasts, which is called teruah, it's time to break camp and set out. Now, the teruah was a series of 9 short blasts like this. 9 blasts. That when there was 2 trumpets making that sound, it was time to break camp and set out. So that's the signal for the camps to travel, was start out with a tekiah long blast, then the teruah, and then the long blast. So we get that from various aspects from the scriptures. And a series of short blasts on both trumpets was to be sounded during times of war to invoke divine assistance. So there's these trumpets being sounded with different formation. I just wanted to draw attention as we want to make the scripture come alive. This is how they communicated. Moses would communicate to the people of God in such a big congregation as to what was required, so that you didn't have to have hundreds of little runner boys going out to let the message go out. So trumpets were used. Now, of course, we've talked about a lot, and I will talk more about this at the Feast of Trumpets, Yom Teruah, about the Shabbat trumpets and the great last trumpet, what's called the Shofar Gadol, and the coming of the mighty return of Jesus. But we will leave that, I think, because we want to get through this portion today. I was going to touch on it, but we will leave that for coming up in a couple of months' time is the Festival of Trumpets. Okay, so what happens now is it's time to leave, and we won't read this next section because it is a little bit repetitive. It just, the tribes started to go out under their own banners, the tribe of Judah and the tribe of Issachar and the tribe of Gad and Dan and Reuben and all of the tribes were going out, but they went in these lumps of 3. Remember, we talked about it last week. There was a group under the tribe of Judah, another, and so there were 3 of those. So that was Issachar and Zebulun and Judah. They were sort of bunched together as 3 tribes on the eastern side. And there was Reuben and his 3 tribes, and then there was the other groups on the west and the north. When the trumpets blew, it's time to go, then Judah would begin to move out with his group, and they would start to head out. And it's an amazing procedure here. The tabernacle. I'll go through this. After nearly 12 months at Mount Sinai, the cloud then just one day lifts. The cloud goes up. It's like you've been there nearly 12 months, and suddenly the cloud moves. Oh my goodness! This is the time Moses starts to think, my goodness, the cloud's lifting. Okay, I command you to blow the trumpets. The trumpets blow the 2 trumpets, and you can see Nachshon. He's sitting down having a cup of tea and his breakfast. His wife just made him beautiful pancakes for breakfast. They're just pouring some honey on it. Just got the cup of tea. Oh my goodness! It's he's the guy that's leading the first tribe. It's like, no time to do the washing up. Just throw it in. I'm in charge, and quick, get me my best clothes. Get me my travel clothes. Have you got that parka? It's a bit nippy out here, And so off he gets, and so he's organizing his whole tribe. There's tens of thousands, not hundreds of thousands of them. And then there's the tribe next to him saying, oh, what's Judah doing over there? The head of the tribe of Issachar looks over and says, look, he's throwing his tea and it's time to go. And so he gets his tribe ready. And so there's this, we all heard the horns go. That's the first time I've ever heard them. Can you imagine the first time? It's like, oh, the novelty. And so they all start to pack up. Quick, let's get our tents packed down. Sons, daughters, Lucy, you do this. Harry, you do this. And you can, just like you and me when we go camping or something, this is how it all, you can imagine. These human beings. Get dressed, Ari. Get dressed. Zion, get your shoes on. You can see this all happening. Yeah, whose baby's crying over there? Pick him up. It's time to go. Anyway, they start to head out in this big, massive group heading out, and they're following the cloud. And Nachshon, the head of Judah, has got to keep his eye on that cloud. Away he goes. So 3 tribes move out. Rashi says the tabernacle is, as soon as that sound starts, the tabernacle starts to be dismantled. So what happens is the Levites come in from around the tabernacle and begin to do their job. And remember, this is the first time they've ever done it. It's like suddenly the wagons come in and the Kohathites are thinking, we've got to wait for the priests to cover all of the holy furnishings, because if we see them, if we go in there, we're going to die. You know, we don't, you know, some of the 8,000 Levites were to protect the tabernacle because well-meaning, you know, I'm a bit like this. I see someone on a camp putting down their tent and I think, I'll go over and give them a hand. And I walk over, I said, hi, you know, would you like me to give you a hand, pack it? Oh, thanks very much. Pull up that peg, there's a guy rope. Where would you like me to put this, you know? Oh, back of the car. Well, you couldn't do that. Even if you're a very helpful person, the Levites would guard the tabernacle so you didn't touch it, because if you touched it, you'd die. That's what they were guarding you from. And so they're there protecting everybody. And it's game on, the cloud's moving. And so the Levites who are responsible for the outer furnishings, they were starting to unpeg the pegs and put down the poles and place them on the carts. And you can imagine the tents, the soft coverings. Gershom was taking those down. The Meraris were doing the hard tackle stuff. And anyway, so then it's being dismantled. And once the tabernacle's dismantled, Judah's ready to go. The banner of Judah sets out. Aaron and his sons go in, take down the paracheth curtain, the veil, covered the ark with it. And then the sons of Gershon dismantled the tabernacle, loaded on the wagons. This is Rashi. The ark and the holy utensils are carried by the sons of Kohath. They stood covered and placed on poles. So it looked like when the tabernacle was done, all that was left were the holy furnishings covered with things. It's sort of like after you've had a big conference in a tent and it's all been packed away and there's a few things still sitting on the ground. Well, these were the holy items. The Kohathites could then come in and pick them up. They had to pick them up on the poles and carry them. The Ark of the Covenant was on their shoulders for the first time. They're walking out with this. And then they begin traveling in the tribal order prescribed by the Lord, with the main part of the tabernacle traveling between 6 tribes in the front and 6 tribes behind. So there they are, tucked in between the first 6 tribes and the last 6 tribes, and then in the tribal groupings. And Rashi goes on to say the sons of Gershon and the sons of Merari, who had preceded the Kohathites by the departure. So they've taken the soft and the hard coverings on these wagons. And then the Kohathites started to leave. And so they went out. And when it came time for the cloud stopped, Judah would start to set up, and in reverse order, and they'd set up the tabernacle. And by the time Kohath, and they're carrying stuff on their shoulders, arrived, they'd basically just walk straight into the tabernacle and put the furnishings down so that the priests would then come in and take them in and uncover them. And that's the way it was. And then the final 6 tribes would arrive. You got the picture? Did I tell that story all right? That you got a bit of an idea of how it all happened. And so this was the last tribes coming up was the group of Dan. Dan was leading up the rear. As I think Rabbi Gordon said, the caboose on the train, the caboose, the one that's at the end. Annie and Clarabelle, you remember that story of Thomas the Tank Engine and the caboose at the back. I can't remember what the name of that one was. We had children too. So, so what happened with Dan at the back? You'll love this story. Dan, because the tribe of Dan was numerous, they traveled last. And if anyone had lost anything along the way, Dan's tribe would find it. Basically, they had this great big vacuum cleaner on the back end, the caboose, the Dan lost and found. So someone dropped, where's your shoe, Ari? I lost it. Well, that's okay, because Dan and his tribe are walking along behind. Yeah, I lost that earring, she says. I lost that earring. I lost the backing for my earring. I lost the backing for my earring. It's my earring's fallen off. That's okay. The tribe of Dan is walking behind like this massive vacuum cleaner. And it comes along and the Danites are walking behind because this is their responsibility. Judah's already camped, but up ahead. But here comes Dan, and someone looks down. Oh, look, there's a shoe. Oh, look, there's a spade. Oh, look, something shining in the sand. It's a backing for an earring. Amazing. So this would happen, and they move through. And when they finally set up, Rashi says, they traveled in a box-like formation, and they traveled in the form of a beam, picking up everything. When they got to the other end, everyone could come to Dan. There's this big table, I imagine, this huge table with the word lost and found, and you could come up and claim, oh, there's my earring backing right there. Thank you so much, tribe of Dan, for being so obedient to the Lord in being the great lost and found. Okay, so that brings the scripture a little bit to life there. Let's move on. Any questions? It was the tribe of Dyson. That's what I would call it, the tribe of Dyson, or the tribe of Hoover. Right. As the camp set out, let's read on here. We're in Numbers chapter 10. Thank you for that lovely read last time, Lily. That was very nice. And what we are going to read is just this last part here in verse 35 and 36. Why don't I read it? So it was that whenever the ark set out, that Moses said, "Rise up, O Lord, let your enemies be scattered, and let those who hate you flee before you." And when it rested, he said, "Return, O Lord, to the many thousands of Israel." Has anybody got any comments on this? Some of you will know about this. Has anybody heard these, pardon me, words before? Particularly those who have been in synagogues or anything like that? Okay, well, let's have a look at it. So, rise up, O Lord, let your enemies be scattered. Many years ago, we used to say, sing a song, rise up, your enemies be scattered. Let God arise, your enemies be scattered, or let God arise. Who remembers that song?
Beth, singing it. Please stop.
Okay. It's in your head now. Sing it for the rest of the day, Beth. So, as the camp of Israel set up, the Ark of the Covenant was taken up. Now, it says that Rashi's got a view here that there was a second ark, two arks. One that remained in the tabernacle, one that led them into battle. This is a difficult one to know. I haven't resolved it. I know that the rabbis bag each other out on the subject of really a second ark. Rashi believes that there was. Maimonides says that's ridiculous. There was no second ark. But nonetheless, they say Rashi says the ark that led them out into battle was not the ark that was supposed to remain in the tabernacle in the Holy of Holies. And Maimonides and others would say, well, yes, it was. It went out before the people, the presence of God. So, but let's not worry about that too much. It's just that when the ark went out of the tabernacle and began to make its possession, the words were said, "Rise up, O Lord, your enemies be scattered." It was like in a sense, a war cry, because they were heading off in this. They're called the army of Israel, even though they're the people of Israel. They're still called an army, the cohort, the hosts of Israel. And so that ark would travel in the front of them. Rashi says, those who hate Israel, for anyone who hates Israel hates the one who spoke, and the world came into being, as it says, those who hate you have raised up their heads. Who are they? They plot deviously against your nation. And so he's saying there are enemies all around, but the ark of God would protect them. And as an interesting aside, these words are separated. I'll show you in the Hebrew. Again, on the website, you'll see that the words here, have I put it up? Oh, didn't I put it up? I don't think I've put it up, folks. I'm very sorry, but there is a there is if you go to the Hebrew, you will find that these words are separated by what's called a reverse nun. So the letter nun is like a backward C, but a half backward C. And these words are separated front and back by a reverse nun, which is nun carries the number 50 anyway in the Hebrew alphabet. But some say you've got to go back 50 portions, mini portions, because every major portion has 7 portions. So you've got to go back 50 portions to find out where this is supposed to slot in. Because the Torah is not in chronological order. I'm sure you worked that out by now. The chronological order is not, it goes to and from. So they say that this comes back to there. So that's a thought there. But I will say this, that in the synagogue, if you go into a synagogue today, part of the liturgy for the Torah service is that when the Torah comes out of they call it the ark. Next to it is Moses' seat. Still to this very day, you'll find the ark. It's like a house for the Torah scroll. When the Torah scroll comes out of the synagogue ark to be unrolled, the congregation says, "Rise up, O Lord, and let your enemies be scattered, and let those who hate you flee before you." Once the Torah reading has been completed, the Torah scroll is placed back in the ark at the front of the synagogue. And after it's put back there, the people say, "Return, O Lord, to the myriad thousands of Israel." So that is the story of the ark leading man into battle. Any questions there? No, because you want to get on to the next subject, don't you? That's what it is. You want to get on the next subject. All right, well, to do that, we've got to go to, you can see it's like all portions. It's a huge portion, Numbers 11. Let's go to, now, I looked at the time and I see that it's 15 minutes to go. And the 3 major things I would have loved to have covered in a perfect world were the people complaining for not having food to eat. They had food to eat. It's a great story. For those who are prophetic, you will like the story and leadership, how Moses chose 70 leaders, or how God chose 70 leaders and put his spirit upon them. It's a wonderful subject. And then the quail, but then the dissension of Aaron and Miriam. And now I have to make a choice, because we'll probably only get through one of those. Well,
We wait with bated breath.
Yes. Well, that's probably the answer, because the complaints about fish and bated breath sounds like a bait. So that comes from fishing. And so Rabbi Leon has given us the answer. So let's read that. Let's get Finn. Finn, can you read chapter 11, 1 to 3? Just unplug you got to unmute yourself.
Ready? Yep. Okay.
The people weren't happy about the hard times they were having. The Lord heard what they were saying. It made him burn with anger. Then the Lord set fire on them. It blazed out among the people. It burned them up. It burned up some of the outer edges of the camp. The people cried out to Moses. Then he prayed to the Lord, and the fire died down. So the place was named Taberah. That's because the fire from the Lord had blazed out among them.
Okay, thank you very much, Finn. Excellent work there. So, okay, these people were complaining, and herein begins this problem. It's not begins, it's this problem of this complaining attitude of the people. It would go on to be called an evil generation, because they just were locked into, we often think that these complaints were just based on their circumstances. we find, and I'll say this because it will underpin all that we say about the children of Israel through their journeys through the desert, is that it wasn't about manna and it wasn't about their difficulties. The problem was they didn't want the commandments. They'd been, even though they lived in slavery, they didn't have commandments. So they weren't restricted by commandments. Now, this is a lesson for us, particularly for people who are going on a journey with the Lord into a deeper commitment to observe the Torah, commandments of God, etc. There's an initial excitement. Oh, yes, this is new. It's exciting. But then that sense of the restrictions, which aren't really restrictions, but they disallow you from doing what you just, once upon a time, the sum total of your spiritual activity was turning up to church on Sunday. That was it. Many of us can attest to that, I suppose, is that we were just, we've done it. We've been to church. Oh, that was so exciting. We sang, the Lord loves you. I just felt a touch from the God and was able to open my scripture for the week. But as you go on with the Lord and realize there's a lot more to your spiritual walk with God, it gets deeper and deeper. And the path, as Jesus says, narrow. It's a narrow path. The gate's not a wide gate. And that's the gate that leads to life. And so there's sometimes along that initially so exciting, but then you go, oh, gee, I miss the fact that I could just have to go to church and I was fine. But look, that's a long time ago. And this is where the children of Israel had got to. They were delighted that being set free from slavery, didn't have to make bricks anymore, didn't have to do it without straw. Now they're complaining. Why are they complaining? Because the restrictions, they think, from the Torah, this is not fun anymore. We could just do what we wanted back there, even though we were under slavery. That's the basis of this. And so God calls him in Jeremiah, the prophet says, this is an evil people. The term the people or this people, when God refers to the people instead of my people, when he says the people, it's like when your middle name is used by your parent when she's telling you off. John Bartholomew Smith, like it's no longer just John. Hey, John, what are you doing? It's like John Bartholomew Smith. It's when they use your middle name, it's like when God refers to the people or this people instead of my people, he's telling them off. And so it means this evil people. And so the problem is they're seeking a pretext. They're seeking any reason to turn away from God. And so they intend for this pretext, this argument, to reach the ears of God. Now, you may have done this yourself in very low times, but it's not advisable. It's not advisable to get into the habit of telling God off or complaining to God too much rather than trusting him. So it's important. This is a big thing. 1 Corinthians, Paul addresses it. He says, more in chapter 10, verse 1, moreover, brethren, I don't want you to be unaware that all our fathers were under the cloud, all passed through the sea, all were baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea. And verse 5, but with most of them God was not well pleased, for their bodies, we find, were scattered in the wilderness. Verse 9, nor let us tempt Messiah, as some of them also tempted and were destroyed by serpents, nor complain, as some of them also complained and were destroyed by the destroyer. Now, all these things happened to them as examples, and they were written for our admonition, upon whom the ends of the ages have come. This is the Apostle Paul linking to this exact scripture, saying, don't get caught up in complaining to God. Stop it. Stop it. He has your best interest ultimately at heart, even though you may be going through a difficult patch. Trust him. Trust him. Don't fall into the temptation or pretext that God is not able to deliver you from your situation. And so Philippians tells us, do all things without complaining and disputing. The Didache says in chapter 3, verse 6, my child, don't be a murmurer, because it leads to blasphemy. That's what he says. And of course, Paul says, rejoice always, pray without ceasing, in everything, give thanks, for this is the will of God in Messiah Jesus for you. We're all tempted. We're all human. We're all fragile. But God doesn't want us to fall into that trap. And this is where this great story of the candle, the rooster, and the donkey comes in. Are you ready for it? So Rabbi Akiva, you'll find it in the Talmud, Berachot 60b, verse 13. This is the incident. Rabbi Akiva was walking along the road and he came to a certain city. He inquired about lodging there. Can I stay here the night? And they did not give him any lodging. No, sorry, no room, go away. He said, that's okay. Everything that God does, he does for the best. Slammed the door. He walks away. He went out and he found a place to sleep in a field, not far from the city. He goes out and finds a little comfortable spot out there and sets himself up for the night. And he had with him his rooster, a donkey, and a candle. But in the middle of the night, oh no, along came a lion and ate the donkey. Oh no, it ate my donkey. What did Rabbi Akiva say? Rabbi Akiva says, it's okay. It's okay. You know, he's controlling himself. Oh, it's okay. Everything that God does, he does for the best. He's just settling in again after that horrendous thing. You can still hear the lion eating the last remnants of the donkey, when all of a sudden a cat comes along and eats his rooster. What? This cat comes and eats his rooster. He hears it, the scuffle, and then you hear this, and then and there's no more sound. And you can hear now the munching of the lion on the donkey, and the cat is eating the rooster, and by the sound of it, crunching on its claws. Oh no, what should he do? Well, he says everything that God does, he does for the best. Well, at least he's got his candle. No. The wind comes up and blows out his candle. He doesn't have any matches anyway, so because that was his last match. And now he has no candle and it's getting dark. Oh no, Rabbi Akiva, what are you going to do? Are you going to shake your hand at God? No, what does he say? Everything that God does, he does for the best. Well, the Talmud goes on, it says, that night an army came and went and took the city by force into captivity. Every member of the city became a slave for life. And it turned out that when Rabbi Akiva woke up, he realized the city was gone, ransacked and burning. Lots of dead bodies and lots of people had been gone into captivity, and there was no city left. But the army, the invading army, had left him alone. Why? Because he was out in the field and he had no candle to make them aware of where he was, no rooster to crow and give away his position, and no donkey to bray and make his position known. So he alone was saved. And as he told this story later, he said, didn't I tell you, everything that God does, he does for the best. There's the story of the candle, the rooster, and the donkey. Now, put up your hand if you like that. You like that story? Sort of. Some people say sort of. Okay. that was my best effort at that story. Everything God does, he does for the best. And then the people go on and begin to crave some weird things. Now, look at this. Now, we'll finish on this one because I wanted to get to the fish, just because Leon had sort of basically demanded it earlier. Verse 4, it says there to verse 8, now the mixed multitude who were among them yielded to intense craving. Intense craving. Have you ever had intense craving? I know for pregnant mothers, I know that you have intense craving. Men can't really claim to have intense craving for any real reason, except that they just intensely crave things like, peanuts or whatever it is, chips. But here they had this intense craving. So the children of Israel also wept again. Oh, no, who will give us meat to eat? We remember the fish. We remember the fish that we ate freely in Egypt. Oh, we remember the cucumbers. Now, I don't know. Oh, I don't know. Pregnant women, do you really crave cucumbers when you're pregnant? I don't know. Is that one of the things you crave? Natasha's saying yes. You crave cucumber. Okay. I will not say any more. She craved cucumber. The melons. Oh, the melons. The pumpkins. Oh, the leeks. Oh, I love my leeks. The onions and the garlic. But now our whole being is dried up. There's nothing at all except this manna before our eyes. All we've got is this divine provision from God. No, all we've got is this manna. Now the manna was like coriander seed, its color, like the color of bdellium, which is like a crystal. All we've got is this round-shaped, coriander seed-shaped, crystallized manna, which the rabbis say would turn into any taste that you desired, except for those things listed there because they were not appropriate, ironically, for pregnant mothers. Garlic and onions is not good for having when you're pregnant, but anyway. And the people went about, gathered on the ground and on millstones, beat it into mortar, cooked it in pans, made cakes of it. The taste was like the taste of pastry, prepared with oil. When the dew fell on the camp at night, the manna fell on it. Then Moses heard the people weeping throughout their families, everyone at the door of his tent. My goodness, this was like a tantrum of huge proportions, and the anger of the Lord was greatly aroused. Moses himself was quite displeased. So what we've got here is these people wanting fresh fish. Oh, the fish, it was free. Now, the rabbis pick up on this and they just think this is ludicrous and ridiculous because this has got nothing to do with food. This has got to do with the commandments. Remember we said that before? Because what? Let me read the Rashi on this one. He says here, when manna is picked up, it denotes that the Hebrew word denotes that it was picked up taking a stroll. There was no exertion. So there was no work in picking up the manna that God had provided. There were with the Israelites a mixed multitude which had attached themselves to Israel when they left Egypt. And these were the ones that began to weep. And then the children of Israel heard them weeping and they began to weep with them. Who will feed us meat? Did they not have meat? Does it not say that there was a great mixed multitude went up with them and flocks and cattle? You might argue that they had already eaten them, but when they were about to enter the land 40 years later, is it not written that the children of Reuben had much cattle? So what's this business where they've got all this food, this meat, and they're complaining they don't have meat? Rashi says it was that they were seeking a pretext, an excuse to complain to God. The other rabbi says that this was not a lust for meat, but for sexual vice. The Midrash says Pharaoh did not even give them straw, and they said that they received free fish. They worked 7 days a week making bricks for Pharaoh, and they said that he gave them free fish. If they could have said that and would have known about the manna before, and they would have claimed to have already eaten at Pharaoh's table themselves. Did we not have free fish? Did we not eat at Pharaoh's table? It's nonsense. And so the Talmud says Rav and Shmuel differed to the meaning of one says it means fish. The other says it's an idiom for forbidden sexual relationships. This is also the meaning of what it says further on. Moses heard the people weeping throughout their families. They were weeping Now, they were weeping over the incestuous relationships that were now forbidden to them because of the commandments. Okay, the commandments now were restricting their lives, things they could do before they could no longer do. And Rashi says, which we ate in Egypt free of charge. If you say that the Egyptians gave them fish free of charge, does it not already say that straw shall not be given to you? Now, if straw was not given free of charge, really were fish given to them free of charge? So what does free of charge mean? It means free from the burden of the precepts of the Lord. We could eat fish back there without any commandments, but now we can't. We can't eat, we can't do anything except now we're bound by the commandments of God, which we, by the way, agreed to. And so here I'll finish on this. When you come to the Lord, everything changes. When you decide to walk with God in a closer walk, your calendar will change, as you probably are all aware. Your holidays, your day of worship, your friends, your rhythm of life, the places you go, the style of worship, the entertainment you watch, everything changes when you come to the Lord. Even the food you eat changes. And it's normal at a certain point to long for some of the things that you used to do or you've left behind. But those who walk with the Lord know that it's not time to give up on the Lord. You reflect back on simpler days. Sundays was your day of worship, and that was it for the week. That was the full extent of your expression of faith. Simple life. We remember the fish we used to eat for free. But now we're coming into a tighter walk with God. And the manner on which we now feed is the one who has descended from heaven. He is the bread of life. He calls us to eat of him alone and to follow him alone. This is Jesus. This is our Messiah. This is the way of life for us now. So there we go, folks. That brings our time to a conclusion for today. My encouragement for you today is to live for the Lord. Don't complain. Remember, whatever circumstance you're in, he already knows it. He can take you out of it. You might be there without your donkey and candle and cat, rooster, for a reason. But remember, God is there for the best ultimately. So on that note, God bless you. I pray that you have a wonderful Shabbat Shalom. And we look forward to seeing you next week on the Torah portion. God bless you.